My name is Gwen Gosney Erikson. I'm the Quaker Librarian and College Archivist at Guilford College here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And a lot of the work we do through our Quaker archives intersects with the study of anti-slavery and abolitionism because of the Society of Friends, or Quakers, having a long testimony of equality. So what we have in the archives are not only the history of our college that dates back to 1837, but also manuscript collections and church records that date back to the 17th century. Well, of course, we have Guilford students, as well as students from other area institutions. Historically, we had a lot of family history, genealogical researchers coming through, predominantly historically white families who were descended from the Society of Friends and early members. So they might not still be, in that particular faith community, but had an ancestor who was. And in more recent years, we have less kind of in-person interactions with your average genealogical researcher because a few years ago we made our most heavily used church records available on Ancestry so that people could get access to that information. And so now the people doing family history who are coming in tend to be those who are taking it to the next level, not just looking for a birth date or a death date or when someone might have become a member of the Society of Friends, but the story surrounding their family member. And we also have had a growing interest of individuals who are coming from the African American community as more of our records start to tell a fuller story that relate to their history, even if they were not members of the Society of Friends, but might have had intersections in their community work with members of that faith community. Yes, I remember getting a call from Jack Bigpen telling me about this project that really excited me of making deeds available online. And one reason this excited me was because I knew that there were deeds in there that directly verify anecdotal stories that are described in memoirs that we house, as well as giving a greater kind of body of work about what was happening specifically in the 18 teens and 1820s as individuals within the Quaker community were grappling about how to respond to slavery in their midst. And that included, in some cases, purchases that were being made as humane purchases to help people to eventually gain their freedom. And then, of course, the other piece that I think connects to Quaker studies as well, and I'll be interested in delving more fully into as these deed projects expand to a wider variety of counties and states, is also looking at what harder truths might be present. The cases we are most familiar with are deeds relating to, for example, Vestal Coffin, who we know was one of the, earliest verified white participant in what we now know as the Underground Railroad here in Guilford County as an ally in assisting people to freedom. But I suspect we'll also find some individuals who might show up in deeds that were participating in the institution of slavery despite their faith community's testimony against it. And I have seen some early examples in other regions of where you find those disconnects. And so that shows that it's a much more complicated history. Just because you find someone in a deed doesn't mean they're an evil slave owner. It doesn't mean they're not. And you have to find that fuller story. But you don't need to even ask those questions until you see the deed. About a year ago, Guilford started exploring potential to join a group called Universities Studying Slavery. It's a relatively informal group that's now international in scope. Its kind of home base has been the University of Virginia at Charlottesville. And most of the members of this group were universities that were grappling with their own legacies. Places like UVA, William and Mary, and other institution, UNC Chapel Hill is another one in there, that know from their own university histories that their institutions actively participated in the institution of slavery. And a lot of their major endowment funds and resources they have been, they've been privileged because of that historic connection. So Guilford approached and said, well, if we're noticing this is kind of the background, what about Guilford that was specifically founded as, it was an exclusively white institution, but founded with a clear statement of being against slavery and having known abolitionists included among the faculty and staff at founding. So they were very excited because it adds that other layer. And at this point, this organization is not just studying the institution of slavery pre-1865, but also the legacies of that institution. And so Guilford is really looking at some of that legacies of, and how even though we may have been founded by individuals who were clearly articulating the immorality of slavery, and in our research we found no direct connection in those early founding years to the college profiting from slavery, we do know that the legacy gets more complicated post-1865 with participation in the kind of dominant culture of its day that is nested in white supremacy as an enduring legacy from that earlier era. So what it's given for us is an opportunity to collaborate with other institutions and create ways of doing that critical study of our own institution and not just accepting past stories as the complete story, and doing that further research. Well, I guess two things come to mind. One, you mentioned local specifically, and that's one thing that can make this really connect to the community. These are names and locations and things that show up in those deeds are things that we recognize from our own daily lives in terms of either names on the streets or buildings or landscapes, and you kind of can feel like, oh, that was here. It wasn't some distant other place. It was here. And that can be a struggle if you, like, it's the name of someone that you know, or how that connects. But then with that, it's the past, and the individuals today might not have a direct connection to that ancestor who's discussed in that deed. However, it is still with us today. And I think that becomes the kind of the moral thing that I think about with these types of projects, is just asking the question, what are we missing today? At this point that, this deed from 1825 to us in modern, look at this and are appalled, and how dare we treat a human being like they're, a plot of land. But what are things today that we might just accept as that's the way just things are, and not think about and have that critical analysis and kind of connecting things.
Under my care shall play inside, crying out into the darkness. One sure way to feel it high. Demon mouths lined with halos, thinly veiled but no surprise. Rest assured, welcome sub thoughts of systematic lies.